Yeah, hi. Let's move back into somewhere warmer climes. So GoviEx, African-focused development company. This is actually a photograph of our Miriam deposit in Niger. As you see, we don't have an environmental problem because we don't have an environment. It's 100 millimeters of rain a year, and it comes in 2 weeks. Hence, the scenery looks pretty well like this. That gives you context of what we're working with in that region. And why is this thing not moving? Because you said press the green button. There we go. Disclaimers, you can happily read that yourselves. All right, I say very much an African-focused. We like Africa. The reason for that, and we've talked a lot on a lot of the other minerals today, permitting is an issue globally. It's not an issue in Africa. Africa is a GDP-driven continent. It wants mines, it wants development. That is what drives its economies. And as a result of that, they're very pragmatic. But they follow the rules. You still have got to follow international standards, but the decision-making process is so much faster to go forward. So we're focused on 3 areas. Madawela, it's fully mine permit. It's got all environmental permits. That's in Niger. We've got the Mutanga project in Zambia. That's mine permitted. We're redoing the environmental permits to an IFC standard. They are currently a Zambian standard. And we've got an exploration play in Mali. Obviously, our focus has always been about getting our projects ready for the market to develop. We've moved them through the various stages. We're now certainly putting the pedal to the metal here because we think this is the time to go on these projects and get going. The key is these permitted projects and their ability to do it. We've got big resources in the ground. The one point I'll make here is we actually stopped drilling from an exploration point of view back in 2010. We got massive exploration upside on our licenses. Once we went well over £100 million on our main project, there was no real reason to expand beyond that. Let's say it's all about Africa. Africa is a mining jurisdiction. Niger has been one of the largest uranium-producing jurisdictions since the early 70s. It's a well-understood route. Uranium from Niger actually made up for 25% of Europe's imports last year, so it continues to remain a major part of that, strongly driven by Orano, Areva, Kajima, whichever name you want to put them under at the time. Zambia is an interesting jurisdiction, obviously renowned for its copper. The new government in Zambia has set themselves a target of going from 800,000 tons of copper annually to 3 million tons of copper. They've now got all of the government departments, power, infrastructure, labor, pointing in the same direction, and they're looking to diversify as well. The other benefit of being in West Africa is we have a standardized business law under OHADA, which is a very positive point. Just briefly on the market, because you had everybody talk about that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, £190 million is consumed, 122 is produced. We're running out of inventory. The most recent report on UXC on inventory is basically, yes, there's inventory, but no one's going to let any of it go because they need it for themselves. Most of the utilities that we talk to have gaps in their demand on their books from 2025, 26, 27, right at the point that we and many other guys are trying to position ourselves to get into that market. And I think the other point I would make here, just generally on the market, I get a lot of questions about the spot price and why uranium is not reacting. It is reacting. Look at the EUP price. Look at the UF6 conversion. UF6 conversion has gone from $4 to $40 in the last 18 months. EUP. Why? Because people are worried about where their now uranium is coming from. They're now going to start worrying about where their future uranium is coming from. Sorry, a little bit fast on the button there. So Madawela and Niger, great locations for those of us in the region. We've had Orano in there since the 70s. They put in great infrastructure. There's power all the way up to the mine site. There's road, there's labor. Niger has a number of universities focused on geology, on mining. Orano currently run a full mining operation with only Nigerians. The last president used to work underground at the Cominac mine. So this is a country that kind of gets it. These are basic sandstone hosted. We were talking about basins earlier. We forgot one of the basins in the world. Here it is, the Timisoy Basin, massive uranium basin sitting out there. been mined for quite some time. The government gets a 10% free carry. In our case, we did a deal with the government. We owed them $14.5 million. They cancelled in exchange for a 10% stake in the project. Big resource, a lot of potential to go forward. We've just completed the feasibility study. We're one of the few guys that's kind of recently updated. The last one of these was last year. We had to move our uranium price up on this, and the key driver, what I think a lot of companies are going to start to find, is on our mining costs they were down, on our G&A costs are down. The one factor that affected us was hydrocarbon-driven reagents. Sulfur, ammonia, hydrogen peroxide. These were the big commodities that have moved and are impacting. So we're coming in at just under $29 cash cost. Capital we actually took down as well. We actually managed to do a lot of re-engineering on this project to reduce our costs. It's a long life mine. It's 19 years to start with. Produces about 2.7 million pounds per annum for the whole life of that. Again, can be expanded out. It's a fully sustaining project. We've put everything up here. The plant, we've put in solar power. We've been talking on this conference today about power. We've gone full 300% capacity here. We have the grid, but it's only available 70% of the time. So we've put solar in for the daylight hours. Even having full that, you only get 26% of your energy coming from solar. And we're in the Sahara Desert. So there are a lot of limitations on solar. We've got a diesel backup that goes with that. Water's not a problem. Surprisingly, we're in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and water's not a problem. There's massive aquifers under us. We've done a lot of work on design, on our tailings dam, dry stack, but we've gone to continuous rehabilitation as well to make sure we're not sitting with environmental or social issues. We continue to rehab, so that's all gone through as well. A lot of work on reducing the amount of water we consume as well, so we've halved the amount of water consumption we originally were looking at. We brought in some new technologies. We brought in a new mill technology out of Germany. The reason we did that, it cut my power capacity by 3 megawatts. So rather than having 11, I was able to drop it down to 8 megawatts of power. We've looked at other options as well, and we have other technologies to come in to the future on this. Capital at the moment, as I say, 343, we've got to go. I'm currently doing some work on trying to reduce that going forward. Gone through the operating costs already, and we can deal with that. So looking at the next stages for this, we've gone back on the power side. I've got about $15 million in here for power. I've gone back and now looking at PPAs. I looked at the most conservative approach on the FS. Let's see if we can optimize it for the debt side. We're looking at second-hand mining equipment now and under contract mining. So there are the further steps. Where we are at the moment, we already have appointed Endeavour Financial to doing our debt. We've gone out on teasers. I'm glad to say we've got a fairly large stack of companies that come back with red ticks, so we're trying to now move that. Oh, green ticks, we're now trying to move those guys into the LOI stage, and then we'll start looking at the offtake structuring for this project. The target really to get this one financed by the end of next year. It's a 2-year build. Annual production starts late 2025, early 2026. We also have a second project, and this is actually even easier. It's right down on Lake Kariba. It's about 140 kilometers of strike here. Sandstone hosted again. This is very shallow. One of the key benefits of being in Zambia, and particularly with the copper production coming, Zambia produces a lot of sulfuric acid annually. More importantly, though, our acid consumption here is incredibly low as well. So where we managed to get our acid production consumption down to about 50 kg a ton in Niger, we go under 10 kg a ton here in the way that we can operate on this project. So currently this one, we're doing some infill drilling. We're doing in the met test work. We're taking 2 PFSs that we put together. We're driving this one to FS, looking to target finishing that by the end of next year, early 2024, get that one financed. And as soon as we go commercial production in Niger, this one will then go into construction. Produces about the same amount. It's a very low capex project, $120 million. Slightly higher on the OPEX because of the grade, but overall a particularly robust project, low strip ratios as well. Third project, to say, exploration. This is over in Mali. It has got a decent uranium resource, 30 million pounds, comes with a copper-silver credit. We've done a lot of work here recently on exploration, trying to understand it, and recent drilling and IP work shows that everyone previously was chasing the wrong part. We can actually follow the copper, and that where the copper is where the uranium is. So we're now going to go back and relook at that going forward. A lot of work on ESG. We are having to deal with that, particularly with the banks. But ESG for us is more about getting our systems in place so that we can go from being an explorer to being a developer to being a producer. That's the key, that ability to show operational flexibility to move forward. Strong base, about 12% insiders. We recently raised some money, about $7.5 million. We got a very small debt to the Nigerian government, $2 million. That's get paid out by the end of this year. So in a really good position. And then from a value point of view, you know, in this market, it's all about going from being a developer to becoming a producer. We are undervalued relative to everybody else, but, you know, we stick to our knitting. It's about taking this to production. We'll get the just desserts at the end of the day as a player. The other thing to remember for Africa, it is a region that places like China can operate and function. We can sell to China as well. Canadian operations cannot. Australian operations cannot. We can. So we're able to tap into that market from a sales perspective as well. And given that their commitment to nuclear is so substantial, that's a key facet for us. So really, strong market, strong team. I've been in this industry longer than I should be. Africa is very much a focus for us. As I say, it's that ability to get things done. We're not dragged down. And I'll give you, Steve Roman's over there, and he'll probably say the same thing. You know, it took us 4 months to permit our mine in Niger. You know, they sat down on the environmental permit for a week in a town hall. All stakeholders came in, and they did a page turn of a 1,000-page document, and at the end of it, gave us a stamp. Pragmatic, get the job done. Permitted projects, it's all about the market and getting the financing in place to build now.